right. Thank you all for joining us. We are just about ready to get started, I think. I hope everyone is having a lovely Ignite morning since it is so gross outside, at least here in the western suburbs. It's lovely and gray and kind of rainy. All right. Well, welcome. I am Misty Wakuha LaPointe. I am the Director for Pre-Professional Advising here at UIC, which means I head up our pre-health and pre-law advising programs. I am going to have my colleague Rachel introduce herself, and then I will tell you a little bit more about our advising staff, and then we'll jump into our PowerPoint video presentation that we have and go from there. So Rachel, if you would like to say hello.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. So as Misty mentioned, my name is Rachel Ruane. I use she, her pronouns. I am a pre-health advisor here at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And I specifically advise, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but I specifically advise our bachelor's level pre-health programs. So for anyone who may be interested in pre-nursing, pre-nutrition, pre-health information management, or pre-public health, I would get the distinctive pleasure of getting to work with you during your time here at UIC.
Great, thank you. In addition to Rachel, we have two other pre-health advisors that work with students, and they are focused primarily on our graduate level pre-health programs. And again, we'll kind of touch on what that means here at UIC in just a moment. As we move forward, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. You will see that there is a specific participant titled Chat Me Questions. Rachel is monitoring that, so please feel free to send them to that particular participant either privately if you would like, or you may send it for everyone to see, and we will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation as well as leave time for questions at the end if it's not a topic that I'm going to cover during the presentation. So with that being said, I am going to share my screen and we'll get started. Oh. Gosh darn it. It's always the different setup here. All right, we'll go from here. So, welcome to our pre-health at UIC presentation. We are happy to have you here, and we're going to talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. If it will respond. Are you able to see my screen, Rachel? Yes, lovely.
I'm able to see.
There we go.
There we go.
Every once, we do so much Zoom, and every once in a while, it just throws me for a loop. I'm sure you guys all have this experience as well. So these are the primary pre-health fields of study that we work with. You'll notice that they are identified as sort of being different levels. So what does that mean? So the bachelor's level are programs that you can earn a bachelor's degree in here at UIC that are very specifically health. There are a slew of other health-related, health-adjacent majors, but these are ones that we would consider specifically pre-health majors for students. So within that, there are public health and nutrition science majors. Public health as a major, there's a BA and a BS, both in the School of Public Health. Nutrition sciences is a BS. Those are both bachelor level majors that you could enter at any time during your UIC undergraduate career. And Rachel would be the person that would help you figure out when the best time for that may be. For public health, you might want to enter in your second semester. For nutrition, we've often heard that they would like to have you have a little bit of chemistry behind you before you jump in to that particular major. For the other bachelor degree programs, nursing in particular, and health information management, which is actually the IT side of health, so looking at health records, um, infrastructure from a technology perspective, those are actually majors that you cannot enter unless you are accepted. So again, you would be working with Rachel as your pre-health advisor to make sure that you're on track for your coursework and determining when is the best semester to apply and enroll in those programs. Now, most of those bachelor level programs and health information management to some extent as well are also available as graduate level programs where you complete a bachelor's degree first before you enter that field. And again, pre-health advisors are here to help you with that. And we'll again talk more about that in just a moment. And then there are a ton of graduate professional level health professions programs that we advise students around. These are the primary programs. However, there are really more out there than we can cover in a slide deck. So if there's a health professions field that you're interested in and you don't see it here, that is okay. We are happy to help you work through what that looks like. So we're often asked by our students, how do I declare my pre-health major or my pre-med major? And there's not actually a pre-med major or a pre-nursing major. For those bachelor or those graduate level programs that require a bachelor's degree before you can enter them, you do have to declare a major and complete that major as an undergraduate and graduate from UIC before you can enter those programs. But any major is okay. So if you are really interested in history, if you're really interested in art, if you like biology, any of those fields are subjects that you can explore. And we really encourage you to do so because if you are engaged in your major, if you like what you're doing, you are going to be more successful in your coursework. And that is important as a pre-health student. We will make sure that you know what that prerequisite coursework is for your educational goal. And so, because of that, we would like you to tell us that you have an educational goal. There are a number of ways that you can do this. So, if you let UIC know on your common application or your UIC application that you are interested in pre-nursing or pre-med or pharmacy, they'll let us know when you enter UIC. If you change your mind, totally normal. You can let your advisor know at orientation and they'll help you change your educational goal so that pre-health advising has a sense of that. What also happens is that you may change your mind at any point while you are at UAC, and that is very normal. And we have a change my ed goal form that you can fill out and let us know, hey, I thought I came into UIC pre-pharmacy, but now I want to do pre-optometry. We're happy to help you make that change. But again, you cannot major in pre-health. There are some related majors, as I mentioned. So within the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, you might elect to major in health, integrated health studies, either the biological or behavioral. You might choose to do biology, and many students do because a lot of the courses overlap with the prerequisites for those fields. But again, if you have a passion for music, I know, Rachel, I think you recently met with a student who is actually a music major, who is also pursuing pre-nursing. That is absolutely okay. And we want you to really explore those passions and those interests. So let's talk a little bit about how advising works in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, because I think it's important to understand how pre-health advising works. So when you come to UIC as an undergraduate, you are going to have in your first semester at orientation, you're going to meet with a general academic advisor. That person may or may not be your academic advisor moving forward, but you're going to get assigned one. And that person is who you're going to meet with in your first year to make sure that you're meeting your general education requirements, getting on track with your graduation. And you're going to have mandatory first year advising appointments with that person so that you have at least one advisor that you're able to check in with throughout your time at UIC, and we find it especially useful in your first year when everything kind of feels like, what the heck am I doing? Where am I going? Um, Outside of that, you're going to have some specialized advisors. So we have advisors who work with folks on specific majors, and they're called major or departmental advisors. So if you think that you would like to major in biology, and you want to know what that coursework is, you have someone who can help you figure out what kind of which semesters you want to plug in which coursework. If you come to pre-health advising for that, we're going to say, yes, these all look great, but this is not my specific field of knowledge. So I'm going to send you back to that departmental advisor to get clarification on your major. There are also some mandatory advising for second year students that you will need to do around selecting a major, declaring that major. Now, where does pre-health fit? You can see that we kind of overlap with both. So as a first year, if you're interested in one of the bachelor level programs, you can meet with Rachel to talk about your 4-year plan, talk about what your timeline looks like. For students who are interested in those graduate level programs like medicine or dentistry or pharmacy, we often find that it is helpful for you to give it about a semester or two before you come meet with us so that you have time to start developing your interests, to start taking some chemistry. Your timeline is really going to be determined by your science coursework, in terms of how fast you're going to move towards your ultimate health professions goal. However, we do have information for you. So you're going to be able to determine what specific classes do I need to take. We have a lot of resources available for students on demand. So we have a Blackboard page where students can access the required course sheets at any time on their own. We also have a number of webinars available for students, including 2 specifically for first years. So one of the webinars is for students who are looking at those graduate level programs, and one of the webinars is specifically for students who are interested in coming in as pre-nursing students. Once you declare your ITE to UIC, you can access those webinars at any point. So I would encourage you to do that as well. All right. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how does pre-health advising support UIC students. So in addition to that recommended prerequisite coursework, and we update those sheets every year so that we are in contact with all of the various health professions colleges at UIC. And for those programs that are not at UIC, we're looking at the national recommendations for prerequisite courses. And we update those sheets, make them available to students as well as your general advisor. Your major advisor will have access to them as well. If you are uncertain about which field is the right fit for you, we're happy to have those conversations about exploratory health professions. I think I want to use this skill. I like nursing, but maybe I don't like blood. That might not be the right field for you. Or I like nursing, but I don't want to touch people. Again, maybe not the right field, but you want to stay in health. We're always happy to have those conversations. I think those are some of the most fun conversations, honestly, that we get to have. And we can also talk about different pathways. So there is no one right or wrong pathway to get to a health professions program. However, there are lots of different ways to do that. And your pathway may look very different from your sibling, from your friend, from someone else that you know. And so when we have a conversation with you in those individual advising appointments, we're really going to be looking at your record, what you're doing, what your goals are, and help you determine what is the best way to get there for you specifically. In addition to those individual appointments, again, we do lots of webinars and workshops on a whole range of topics, and y'all are, again, welcome to go look and see what those are. And we're adding more constantly. That's actually been one of the benefits of being remote with our students, is we are able to record the workshops and sessions that we're doing for our current students, and then make that available to folks who can't necessarily make the times that we're holding them. So yay, accessibility. We also, through the Blackboard page and through our conversations with students, are regularly sharing opportunities related to healthcare, different ways to get involved, different ideas. We know that the pandemic has been very difficult for students to get healthcare experience currently. So on the PreHealth website, which is LAS PreHealth or prehealth.las.uic.edu, if you don't mind dropping that in the chat, Rachel, you will find a page called PreHealth COVID-19 resources. And that's been a place that we've been able to put resources, ways to get access remotely to pre-health experiences, keep up with changing course recommendations and credit, no credit changes, all of sort of the things that have gone on during the pandemic. We are trying to capture in that one spot so students have a quick and easy place to go. And then ultimately, our overall goal is to help students become a strong applicant to health professions programs while they are at UIC, and really to become a successful candidate for the health professions programs that they're interested in applying to. So how do we do that, or what really, because we should figure out what the what is before we talk about the how. So what is a successful candidate? What does that look like? First and foremost, every health profession school is going to tell you that they are looking at grades and GPA, particularly in prerequisite courses, because these are not easy fields. As challenging as some of those prerequisite courses can be in undergrad or in the first couple of years that you're at UIC, once you get into your health profession program, it tends to move faster and be more complex. So they're really looking for students who have done well in their undergrad, in their prerequisite coursework before they are admitted to their program. They're looking for folks who have engaged in outside of the classroom experiences, and that is a pretty broad definition. So certainly paid work, and we encourage students to think about getting a certified nursing assistant licensure, EMT licensure, phlebotomy, which is the folks who take blood. All of those can provide hands-on opportunities for folks to be involved in healthcare and be paid at the same time. And we know that that is certainly very important to many of our students, so it's a good combination. Pharmacy tech would be another potential field as well. In addition to work or volunteering in a healthcare setting, we would encourage you to explore your interests in terms of student groups and organizations, volunteering within the community. It does not have to be specifically healthcare volunteering, although that certainly could be one component. But if there is something that you are passionate about in your community and you want to get involved with that, we would absolutely encourage that as well. Thinking about leadership opportunities, and that doesn't have to be being the leader of 5 different organizations, but how throughout your time at UIC, throughout your undergraduate experience, do you develop your leadership skills and engage in leadership opportunities? And then, of course, healthcare exposure. Every health profession that you are interested in going into will require that you gain at least some healthcare exposure. Some will want shadowing of a very specific field. So if you're interested in going into dentistry or occupational therapy, physical therapy, all of those fields have specific shadowing or observational hours of a practitioner that they are looking for. Others, like nursing or medicine, are a little bit more broad, and they may say, we want you to have healthcare exposure, but we're not going to necessarily specify what that looks like and whether it's paid or unpaid. And again, we're happy to have those conversations with students. Throughout your time in college, one of the things that they are also going to be looking for are the critical thinking skills that you're going to develop. So that could be through your coursework, the group work that you're doing, the discussion sections that you have, the reading responses that you may do in your online Blackboard pages for your classes. Engaging in research, whether that's through a class project or if you're interested in research on your own, studying abroad. And again, reading, listening, watching, and engaging with the world beyond the classroom. So that might be listening to podcasts while you are on the train coming in and out of campus, or reading. So UIC now has subscriptions to the New York Times for any student or staff or faculty. So taking a look at what's going on in the New York Times every day, read 1 or 2 articles just so you're staying up on what's going on in the broader world. Because ultimately, health professions programs know that students are and practitioners don't live in a vacuum. So understanding your own interests, your own experiences, and knowing a little bit more about what's going on in a broader context can be very helpful, both in figuring out how your health profession program fits into your interests, but also how does health fit into a broader social context for the world, really. All right. And then how does UIC help you become a successful candidate? So, first off, certainly the academic preparation. We are a Research One university, which means that our faculty are engaging in substantial research at the same time as they are teaching students, and that students have the opportunity to get involved in those sorts of things. We have, I like to think, excellent advising between your pre-health advisors, your departmental advisors, and your general advisors. But in addition, there are also student support programs that are out there that have coaches and other folks who can help guide you through some of the obstacles or challenges that you may face while you are at UIC. I like to tell students that college, and especially if you, like Rachel and I, were first generation college students, it can be a little bit scary to come in and not know where to start. And really, all you have to do is reach out to one person, one of your advisors. Let us know what help you need. And we may not know the answers, but we can help you get connected to someone that may be able to address the specific things that you're looking for. We have Math and Science Learning Center, we have a Writing Center, we have ACE, which used to be the Academic Center for Excellence, but they work with students on test anxiety. Gosh, I'm totally blanking on all of the things that they do, but really all of those sort of executive function skills that some of us need help developing when we come into college, that's a great place um, to go for those sorts of things. Lots of opportunities for tutoring and outreach. Again, the support services programs and our Flames Leadership Network, which are student mentors who are also, again, peer mentors who are here to help you navigate some of those pieces of college that you may not know that you need to know yet. As I mentioned, as a Research One institution, we do a lot of research, many of it federally funded through NIH grants and others. And there are opportunities on this campus for students to get involved in research early in their academic career. It's a little bit harder as a first year because you just don't always have the coursework behind you, but really second year, third year, senior year, there are lots of opportunities for research. I always encourage students who are interested in research to start with the ure.uic.edu research page. It's our undergraduate research experience page. And the Chancellor's Undergraduate Research Awards, which essentially are work study grants for students who qualify for work study through their financial aid to work in research labs. And so faculty are able to hire students without spending their grant money. So it saves them money for equipment and other things, and it allows students the opportunity to work with faculty on their research. It's really a win-win for everyone. And it really gives students a great entry into what is academic research. It doesn't have to be scientific, so there's lots of research opportunities in the social sciences as well. And if you're interested in medical school, you don't have to be in a wet lab to really gain a good research experience. Once you've had a little bit of research experience, or maybe you're really excited about a research topic, if you are in LAS, you can participate in what we call a LASURI, which is the LAS Undergraduate Research Initiative, where there is funding available both for the student and their faculty advisor so that the student can pick their own topic and work on their own research topic and really develop that. So it's really exciting, I think. And I've heard from many, particularly medical school admissions folks, that they are always impressed with the depth and breadth of research that our students are able to access as undergraduates. And then outside of the classroom, because remember, that's just as important as that inside of the classroom piece. Again, really partaking in student organizations. We do an organizations fair every semester so that you can go and meet students who are engaged in different activities that you may be interested in. There are lots of pre-health focused organizations, but you, again, don't have to do just pre-health. So if you're interested in pursuing a dance group or joining a fraternity or sorority, you have those options available to you as well. And then taking advantage of the leadership programs and opportunities that come along through our student activities organization here on campus, the various speakers and events that come up, research symposia. We have in LAS an amazing career development office who does career development workshops. So if you're not sure what your major should be, they do things called Finding Your Fit. What is the right major for you? Thinking about internships. We're not going to hand you an internship, but if you're interested in doing one, our career development office can help you work through how to find one, what kinds of things should you be looking for, and how potentially do you get credit for those things. And then, of course, advising, because I think we're an integral part of what you're doing here. The other thing to keep in mind is that there are opportunities in college that you may not have thought about, and we want to make sure that you're thinking or considering studying abroad as a student. It's rare as an adult that you have the ability to spend as much time abroad in one chunk as you might as an undergrad for a semester. Thinking about pursuing fellowships like a Fulbright after you graduate or a Rhodes Scholarship, those sorts of things. And then really exploring, again, your academic and personal interests throughout your academic career make you more interesting. If you are just doing the things that you need to do, what we call checkboxing, like, all right, I've checked off my prereqs, I've checked off activity 1, activity 2, what else do I need to do? Well, if everybody has the same activities, how do you differentiate yourself in the application pool? And that's really where that exploration and development of your own interests come in for the application process and really just for life in general. This is a great time to explore who you are and who you want to be as you get older. Not that that ever stops, because I know I'm still doing that. If you are interested in learning more about anything specific that we've talked about or that I've covered here, a specific major or a study abroad, a particular organization, you can create your own custom viewbook and it'll send that information to you. So you can do that at customviewbook.las.uic.edu. And then last but not least, I'm going to post some pictures for you to look at while we answer questions. So all of the photos throughout the session have been UIC pictures, UIC students. And as I was preparing the slide, there are so many wonderful pictures out there. And I just couldn't get enough of looking at our students. We have missed seeing them in person, seeing you guys in person. So a few photos for you guys to look at while we answer questions. And I am happy to take any if there have been any that you think we should chat about, Rachel.
I say there was a really great question in the chat related to internships versus research and kind of which one might be a better option if they're thinking about a graduate program like pre-med, pre-dentistry, or those types of programs.
Yeah, so it really depends on your interests. So if you are interested in research, I would say give it a try. If you do it for a semester and you hate it, totally okay. If you love it, then you may be able to further develop your interests with that. For students who know that research is not something that they are interested in, then you do not have to pursue it. It's not a required component to get into medical school or to get into dental school. Yes, if you look at the numbers, lots of students have those. But again, it's kind of that checkmark thing. Lots of students try it because they think it's something that they need to have, but not everybody pursues it for a long period of time. And it's certainly okay to kind of dabble and see if you like it. You do need to have healthcare exposure and experience. So that could be through an internship, certainly. It could be through volunteer or paid work as well. Um, Internships, though, if you're thinking, gosh, I'm really interested in epidemiology right now because of the pandemic, an internship could give you an opportunity to work with the public health department over the summer during the academic year, potentially earn credit for that, and determine how does this fit into a potential medical career, or am I more interested in this public health piece versus going to medical school? So I would say both are valuable for different reasons. And when you do an internship or when you have a research experience or you participate in an organization or you work somewhere, you're also learning about what you don't like in addition to what you do like. And that's equally as important because you're learning, oh, this is not something I want to do. I thought it sounded good. It looks great on paper, but it's not really a good fit for my skill set or my interests. And gosh, isn't that a great thing to learn while you're in college before you're kind of committing to a career in a specific field. Um, so yes, internships can be great, research can be great. It's okay to kind of explore both and determine I like one or both of these things.
Misty, do you want to talk a little bit about support for entrance exams? So things like the MCAT
Sure.
and how our role fits into that?
Absolutely. And I am just going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see questions that come up as well. All right, so entrance exams. So most professional programs do require entrance exams, especially if you're looking at graduate level programs. This year, with the pandemic, we have seen more pharmacy schools waive the PCAT, which is the pharmacy college admission test. However, most do want to see MCAT for medical school or podiatry school, OAT for optometry, DAT for dental, GRE for quite a few. It goes on and on. Some of those, so the GRE is kind of a general exam, and it can be used to kind of highlight what you have been doing in your undergraduate coursework. So if you have maybe not done as well in some of your math or science and your quantitative reasoning on the GRE is a little bit lower, then that may make sense. For other fields like the MCAT or the DAT or the PCAT, it's really looking at specific coursework, and you are required to take those exams before you can be admitted into a program. And for better or worse, some fields like medicine do put a lot of emphasis on the MCAT. Um, so we absolutely have recommendations on what coursework you need to complete before you even start taking the MCAT. We have handouts for our students on MCAT and DAT preparation options, which can be quite expensive. So we also try to include least expensive options that we can find so that students are aware of what those are as well. Encouraging students to take practice exams and not use the MCAT or the DAT or the OAT as a practice because those are exams that never go away. So let's say you took one, you were like, oh, I want to see what the MCAT's like in my freshman year. And you took it and you scored in the 8th percentile, which would be like a 485, somewhere in that range. The average is about a 500, 501. That initial score is never going to go away. So when you take it for real, schools are going to see that initial score and that can factor into your application. So um, they are, I have lots of thoughts and feelings on the MCAT, that this is not necessarily the most appropriate place to share that. They are necessary, um, and we want students to really get to a point where they feel comfortable with their practice scores before you take the actual exam, because it does factor into your application process. And it will vary a little bit by field. And again, we're happy to have those conversations with students, and it is a regular occurrence where students come in and make an appointment specifically to talk about the tests that they need to take for their field. We do have webinars available for students who just want to know, like, what the heck is this exam? What's on it? What kind of timing am I looking at? Because that can often be overwhelming information to find as well. So we always recommend that students start there and then come see us with specific questions about their timing or study skills, places to find access to study resources, those sorts of things as well.
The next question is thinking a little bit back to gaining those relevant experiences, but how accessible are opportunities for students to get job shadowing in maybe nearby hospitals? So thinking certainly about our UIC campus, but also up and until they get to campus, maybe some of those in their home neighborhood for pre-health students.
Yes. So for pre-health students, right now it is a little bit difficult with the pandemic to get experience, in part because they're just not accepting volunteers at the moment. So taking a look on our website for virtual resources and opportunities is a great way to start getting some experience. It may be watching virtual shadowing opportunities. It may be reading or listening to other information. When things open up a little bit again, what we expect is that there will probably be a backlog of students who want volunteer experience. So it may be a little bit more difficult to get at first. However, putting your name on a wait list so that you can be called when there are opportunities. The hospitals near UIC, so UI Health, County Hospital, all of those sorts of things do take UIC student volunteers. And again, there's a lot of folks who want to get involved. So what we would find is that if you only reached out at the beginning of the semester, they might be full, but as the semester went on, they would have more volunteer opportunities for students. And it is really any opportunity is great. So if they're telling you, well, you can work in our gift shop, that's okay. You're going to learn some customer service experience. You're going to see patients who are coming in or their families who are coming in a whole range of emotional states. I often get asked by students, but I want to do something hands-on, or I want to be the NICU baby cuddler, which I do too. But those are types of positions where you have to show that you are going to be here for the long term, that you can show up consistently, that you're, really willing to put in the work. So let's say you've been volunteering at the information desk for a few months and you're showing up on time, you're coming to all your volunteer hours, and that might be, a couple hours a month, but if you're consistent, that's the key component. And then they see the work that you're doing. And so then they're like, oh, we have this other volunteer position that's opened up. Would you like to try this? Or you have an opportunity through talking to the people that you're working with. Hey, I have this interest. If there's ever an opportunity in, the radiology department to transport patients, I would love to do that. Through that consistency, through the responsibility that you're showing, you're more likely to have those opportunities. And we absolutely encourage students to look at hospitals and clinics closer to their home as well, because they may actually be more in need of volunteers than right here in the medical center area near the hospitals, because there's just so many students looking for experiences. You may also look at rehabilitation hospitals, other sort of smaller clinics that may need help. We have volunteers who work with, gosh, I'm going to forget the name of it. It's a public health clinic here in Chicago, Community Health. And they are regularly looking for Spanish and Polish speakers who can do medical translation for their patients. It's a free medical clinic. And that's actually an opportunity that students can do remote right now. So there's all sorts of different opportunities to get involved and to have that sort of healthcare exposure without necessarily getting certified.
So the next question I'm going to tackle so that way you can get a drink of water or take a break. So the next question was related to ways to connect with other students who have a pre-health educational goal, perhaps similar to one that you all may be entering with. So there are a ton of ways to go about this to kind of build that larger community. I think one is that you all are taking a lot of really similar coursework. So many of you are going to be taking chemistries, biology, similar math style courses that you can really start to kind of scope out and gauge who your community and who your people might be as an opportunity to get to know them a little bit better. Certainly, there are also student organizations, as Misty mentioned during her presentation, some that are very specifically pre-health focused. So our pre-nursing student organization, our pre-med student organization, but also organizations that are focused around a particular community or a particular idea or an interest in an area. So a lot of our students will join cultural organizations or organizations around a particular health issue, such as global health or those types of things. Again, to kind of get around like-minded or liked interest folks to kind of build that community. Certainly also through gaining some of those experiences. So through a CNA or other type of technical certification course, volunteering at, again, our hospitals, our clinics, our community organizations can also be a really good way to build and foster that community as well. Again, in kind of that pre-health context. Anything that you would add to that idea, Misty?
No, I think you've touched on a lot of it. And really networking with your peers is a great way to find out folks who are good to shadow. I know our pre-dentistry club has for quite a while been a great resource for other dental students or pre-dentistry students to network with dentists to shadow, for example, and really taking advantage of the opportunities that your peers know as well, because none of us can know everything. So, kind of finding different resources and triangulating all of that works well.
And then a great question in the chat, Misty. Thinking about this question is specific to medical schools, but I think this could be applied to some of our other graduate level programs. But the types of programs or schools that our students look at or consider when they're applying, certainly aside from UIC, which does tend to be a very popular option across our health programs.
Yeah, really all of them. So it really depends on your academic preparation and how well you do on your MCAT score and all of the other things that you bring. But for medical school, we have students look across the board at MD programs as well as at DO programs, which are osteopathic medical programs. And it really depends on their interests. So we have students at top medical schools. I always find it interesting to see where our students go and what they choose. So, for example, I've been doing pre-health advising for about 10 years now. And in that time, I have seen many pre-health students, pre-med students be interviewed by Mayo Medical School. One student in my career has been admitted. They have a class of about 36, so it's incredibly difficult to get admitted. They are one of the top medical schools in the country. That student decided to go to University of Chicago. So, totally up to them. So certainly Northwestern University of Chicago medical schools are kind of dream schools for many of our students, but honestly, UIC is the first choice for many of our students as well. You'll find them at Harvard, you'll find them at Stanford, you'll find them at Midwestern as a DO school, you'll find them really all around the country. And so I think there is really no limit to where you can go or what you can do. But it's also okay to want to focus on rural medicine or to want to focus on underserved communities. And that may lead you to a different medical school from your friend who wants to focus on maybe more academic research in medicine. And so it's really about finding that right fit. And I will tell you, every single medical school is hard to get into. So you're not looking at just applying to only top medical schools because they are all challenging. So if you get into any medical school, it is a real accomplishment, and you should feel very proud of yourself as you go through this process.
And I would say that for many of our health programs, a lot of
Yes.
them are very challenging to get into. Um, a great question in the chat about thinking about dual degree programs. So this one is specific to thinking about their undergraduate degree at UIC, but then also their graduate degree. Do you want to talk a little bit about that process and maybe how that might fit in for a student or the conversations they might have with us as advisors?
Yeah. So for the most part at UIC, if there is a dual degree option or what we would call a guaranteed professional program admission, those are all decided before you enroll. So there's an application process that you would have needed to go through during your application to UIC. And so you cannot enter those after you begin at UIC. There's not a sophomore entry for those programs. Now, there are some where you can enter or apply essentially before you graduate. So with pharmacy, for example, you could be applying to pharmacy schools to enter before you get your degree. We wouldn't necessarily call that a dual degree. It's sort of you're leaving UIC without graduating and entering your PharmD program. And about 25% of pharmacy students will do that. Usually folks who are coming in with AP credit or dual enrollment credit, which makes it a little bit easier to do so. For medical school, starting, this will be our second year, the University of Missouri Kansas City has offered UIC one of their early admission program, or to be one of their early admission program partners. And so students who are interested in the UMKC Medical School can apply after their sophomore year or after their junior year, which is about a year earlier than you would normally, to know if you've been admitted for the program for after you graduate from UIC. And that has been relatively popular. So they had about 20 UIC applicants this past year. It is still exceptionally competitive. So they interviewed 3 of our students, admitted to, and one has decided to matriculate. But again, they also have a small medical school class. And I think from what I have heard from them, the UIC applicants made up more than half of their applicant pool for that early admission program. So they were quite thrilled, and we were excited to have at least one of our students matriculate early into that program. But there's otherwise not really what we would call dual degree, where it's some sort of guaranteed admission into a program. Once you start medical school or start dental school, there are dual degree where you can do 2 degrees at the same time. So we often see students doing MD, MPH, which is a master's in public health, or a dental degree and a business degree at the same time. With the John Marshall College Law School at UIC now, they're starting to develop joint degrees with the JD for health professions programs. So there's lots of joint degrees at that graduate level. But again, as an undergraduate, really getting your bachelor's degree for these graduate level health professions programs is the sort of that primary step that you take.
And I think we have at this point worked through all the questions in the chat. So certainly if there are more questions that folks have, feel free to send those in either to myself or certainly can list them out for the entire community to read. That's totally fine. As I pull this up here. Misty, there is a really good question here. In thinking about those medical schools, are there things that students should be doing during the summer to help prepare them for a successful first semester here at UIC?
Great question. Relax, for one.
Take a break, just a little break.
Definitely. I mean, I think really the best thing that you can do is start thinking about your own interests and your own habits. One of the biggest challenges, I think, for our students, and this is true really of many college students, is you've been a great student in high school and maybe it's come easily to you. So study habits have not necessarily been your forte. And so really thinking about, all right, what do my time management skills look like? How, what resources are out there? And you can start looking on the website, or if you're like, oh, I know that I might need help for this, you can put a list together for when you do go to orientation and talk with your advisor about um, ways to access those resources. Uh, if you, once you take your placement test, and I would say this is something that can really advance you in particular, once you take your placement test for orientation, if you find that you um, have a math placement that is lower than you would like, or you're getting a postponed chem placement, or you've placed into Chem 101, you can take something called summer college at UIC, which is totally free. They work with you on the information that you need to cover those subjects, and then you retake the placement test at the end of the course, and you can actually place into a higher level. So if you have, for example, a postponed chem placement, you will need to take Math 110 before you can retake the chem placement test. You can take that over the summer, retake the placement test, potentially place into a chemistry class that you wouldn't have had access to prior to that, which can really accelerate your math and science coursework. Any thoughts you have, Rachel, either on summer college or other?
I say my biggest thing is certainly taking those placements as serious as you can, and I know for summer college that can be a really great option for students. But I think as Misty started with that idea of kind of looking at what you're hoping to accomplish, what you're hoping to do, and really letting us as an advising staff kind of fill in that information and fill in those gaps in terms of referrals across campus. As someone, and Misty shared this earlier, I was a first generation college student, and so the number of times that I went to my advisor and was like, okay, I want to do this thing, but I have no idea how to get to, accomplishing this particular goal or getting to this thing. I think, I can't speak highly enough of our advisors in terms of we don't expect you to have the answers. We want you to come to us with those questions and kind of have those interpersonal conversations and really develop an experience that is unique to you. Not only from the standpoint of, yes, I want you to be a competitive applicant, to the programs that I work with, but I also want you to look back on your time at UIC and be like, oh, I had a really good experience. I had a lot of support. I had a lot of people who were in my corner to make sure that I could accomplish my lifelong goal or my newly found goal. So I do work with a lot of folks who kind of shift and change over their educational career to know that that was really worth it. And it was really worth my time and investment and energy that I put forth to that program. So taking that moment during the summer to kind of reflect on that, I think is one of the most important things I can recommend as well. And then speaking of summer college, or thinking about that summer program, Misty, is there a cost associated to that to our incoming students?
No. So if you are taking summer college, that is totally free. So it's a great way to get credits and get advanced in your credits without having a cost. And it's usually what's 4 to 6 weeks, I think. So it's not terribly long over the course of the summer. It does usually happen every day or most days of a week. So if you are working over the summer, it can be a trade-off of hours, potentially, but there's not an actual cost for the credits. So absolutely, if you need to get, or if you're looking to improve your math or chemistry placement or English placement as well, so that you are, especially if you are finding that your math or English placement or is a 0 level course where you wouldn't necessarily earn college credit if you took that during the academic year, that's a great way to get those out of the way, be ready to take the credit bearing course when you start in the fall. And is it going to be online? I believe it was last year. And we do not have any hard and fast answers yet on online versus in person. The courses themselves are generally pretty small, and for the fall semester, we have been hearing that they are going to try to do smaller courses socially distanced, but in person, as well as online. So I don't know that they have a final determination yet for the summer, and some of that depends on vaccination rates, especially here in Chicago. And from what I hear, if you are once you submit your ICT or ITE, sorry, ICT is intercollege transfer. That's what we usually use. If you submit your ITE to UIC, you also potentially get a link for vaccination. So, um, for those of you who are hoping to do both, so we don't yet know. I'm going to assume that it will likely be online, but there may be some small possibility that it is in person, especially if it's the second session rather than the first session.
And I will add, there's been a couple of questions about that summer college. It is confirmed to be held virtually this summer, starting June 21st through August 13th. Registration begins or is available to you all in May. Again, if that's something you want to take advantage of. I included the link to that summer college website in the chat for folks who may be interested in diving into that information a little bit more in depth. And you'll be able to click on a variety of links depending on kind of what you all are thinking or hoping. And certainly, you know, if you have additional questions, I know Misty had put the link up or the email address up in that final page there, but I will also include that you can email lasinfo@uac.edu if you have extra questions that we didn't give you today that might be helpful to follow up with as well. But I'll include that email address here in the chat as well.
Yep. And I am getting messages that we're about out of time. So if there are any, like one last burning question, since we started a couple minutes late, I'm happy to answer that. Otherwise, again, as Rachel mentioned, lasinfo@uic.edu is a great place to go for general questions. And they will triage, if not answer pretty much anything that you can think of. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We hope that you have gotten a little bit more sense of UIC and maybe through the pictures of our students got a little bit of a chance to see campus. And we hope to see you all this summer for orientation and into the fall. So, thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you all.